Hello, Dave.
Hello, Sandy. What are we talking about today?
Well, got something special for today. We are revisiting the 30-minute menace. That's right. We are going to share all that we've learned in terms of coaching within a 30-minute time frame on a platform. I think it's going to be specifically coaching on these platforms, not in a private practice. Although, if you want to have a 30-minute session in a private practice, that's great. You could do that. Um, but the 30-minute menace, it definitely has its challenges. And last time we talked about the 30-minute session, one thing we discussed was recording 30-minute submissions for coaching school certifications. And we're not going there today. We're not going to talk about that today. I might allude to it because there's a couple things that came up in my notes. I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll mention that. But for the most part, we're going to be talking about coaching for these big coaching companies. So, where the heck should we start?
Yeah, maybe we can start here, which is where are we finding these 30-minute sessions mostly? And as you mentioned, right now, probably finding them on these platforms. If you coach for one of the big coaching companies, I would think most private practices would shy towards the 45, 50, 55-minute, 60-minute coaching sessions. So those are kind of companies like Better Up, Modern Health, Spring Health, Maven, a bunch of those like that. We might even talk about some of the other more clinical ones like Able to, which to our knowledge seem to be angling towards the longer sessions because they're more therapy than coaching. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
where we find
able
them today.
able to is primarily therapy, right? Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay. Or maybe they have coaches, but they require their coaches to have some sort of license or degree. But
Yep,
yeah,
there are coaches like that too.
yeah. So here's a question. Why 30 minutes? Like, why not 45 minutes? Why do all the platforms seem to like 30 minutes?
Well, first, if you go look on
Here
the
we
ICF,
go with the research.
if you go on
Buckle
the
in,
ICF
people.
website,
Yes.
there is research. The
Yep.
paper, we can put that in the show notes. It's called Behaviors and Structures for Coaches to Maximize Effects on Coaching, and done in 2013, so a while back. And what they found was that longer coaching sessions do not necessarily lead to more effective coaching. And it didn't matter whether it was 30 minutes or 70 minutes. According to their results in the research, there were no big differences leading to any more effective coaching.
Hmm.
So my guess would be that corporations see that and go, oh, why don't we not go over 30 minutes? Let's make it as short as possible because people don't need that, according to big research. And why not just get things done a little bit faster? But, realistically, it's also cheaper too to charge
Mhm.
only 30 minutes instead of a 60-minute fee.
Right.
So that would be my guess as to why these big coaching companies are moving towards the 30-minute sessions and standardizing on that.
So it's mostly money,
I would think
financial
so.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious. I've found that my sweet spot is 35 to 40 minutes. I'm curious if you have found a sweet spot. When I first started coaching, it was like I needed an hour. And now I feel like I can get in there. And if the person is coachable, and we'll talk about coachability later in this episode, but I feel like 35 to 40 minutes is my sweet spot. What about you?
I'd agree with that. Two areas. One is personal experience, which is, and especially doing so many of these 30-minute sessions. I don't know about you, and we'll get into this more, but I feel like right in and around 30 minutes is where, oh man, if I only had 5, 10 more minutes, we could really,
Yes.
tie this up with a bow
Yeah.
and it would be a lot more comfortable. So that's my personal anecdotal information. But then also, even a while back, I was in a meeting with a whole bunch of MCCs, that's the master level coaching of ICF, And they were also saying, yeah, right in around 40, maybe 40 minutes or so is the sweet spot. 60 minutes is a little bit too long, but 30 minutes, even tight for the masters. And I'm listening to these bunch of people talk about this. I'm like, hold on a sec. These are people who have been coaching for 20 years, 20 plus
Mm-hmm.
years. And that's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, it blows my mind that research still says there's no difference between 30 to 70 minutes. So anyway,
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. And the I think they're all MCCs who helped me with my certifications. They said they're like, yeah, go for like 40 minutes. So interesting that everyone's saying that. All right, so okay, so we're working for one of these companies. We're on a platform or two or three. Do we talk about scheduling snafus? No, let's not go there. That's a whole nother thing. If calendar sync does not work, it can be a nightmare. But so we're working for these platforms, these companies. How do we get matched with clients? Can we talk a little bit about how that works?
yeah, let's see here. Jump in if you have suggestions. But this is what I've seen. There's the profile. So potential clients will search on the platform. There's some magic that does some matching. We all, as coaches, have these profiles that get up there. So it's what we write there that attracts them to select us versus somebody else.
I can talk about profiles for a second if you like.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. So yeah, so some of these companies will only show maybe three coaches to a member after they put in all their parameters, what kind of things they want to be coached on, and then you'll have done that sort of this is what I specialize in. You'll fill that out for the company so you get matched with people who are sort of in your niche. But yeah, having an enticing profile, I think, is really important. And when it comes to marketing, all the business coaches will say, make it all about the client, use their words, use their pain points. And yes, I'd say some of that is good to have, but don't forget about yourself. I read a lot of profiles that are like, will expand your awareness so you can achieve your goals. I mean, coaches do that. Every single coach does that. So if you have someone who's not paying for coaching, who just, they're not paying for this, they just want to coach. They want to find someone they gel with, someone they have chemistry with. So put some stuff in there about yourself, about your brand. I speak to those pain points a little bit, but I'm very conscious of my brand and who I am and who I am as a coach and how I show up in sessions. So I have words like humor, spirituality, holistic, and those three words. And I ask people every session, what made you choose me as your coach? Those are the three words I get over and over again. So I use them because they resonate with me. And if it resonates with a member, then that's great. That's probably going to be a good match. And the other thing about profiles is please have a good photo. I was using a photo that was pre-pandemic. It's 2025 now, so this is like 2018, 19, and I love this photo. I'm wearing pink, the yellow background. I used it for everything. People love that photo. And then a couple weeks ago, a member was like, "Yeah, you look nothing like your photo." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got a little more gray hair now, a little older." So I switched them all out. But have something that looks like you. Like if you're upbeat, have a smiley photo. Don't have a lot of crap in the background, good lighting. Make sure people can see you. Okay, that's my rant on profiles. Would you add anything to that?
Well, first, I want to say that you hit it right on the mark because you don't want to be generic, right? You don't want to sound like everybody else because then people can't decide. If you just sound like the other two other people that come up in that search result, then how do they pick you? Oh, maybe they look at your picture, but it won't be the description. But we have to figure out how to differentiate ourselves competitively. So
Yes.
the only thing that really is different about us coaches, because we all went to the same training, is
Hmm.
ourselves, right? So we have to really shine, make our personality shine, and hopefully they will
Yes.
connect to it. And if they don't, maybe that's a good thing too.
Exactly. And I have something about riding motorcycles and cats. So if someone's a cat person, I mean, that's a connection, you
Or
know?
they
I
love
mean,
motorcycles, man. They're
and if
all
they
over
like
you.
motor, and people mention that, they're like, yeah, what kind of bike do you ride? I mean, it makes it about me. But in that first session, we're getting to know each other, you know, it's like, oh yeah, whatever. And it's something to build rapport around, and it's that connection. So if you can have that connection before you even meet, that's great.
Yeah, great stuff. I think the last thing I'll say about the profile is there is opportunity to actually test your profile. So you can write something, put it up for a couple weeks or however long, and see if it gets more people. Or the people that you do get, you can get feedbacks like, oh, did you read my profile? What did you think about it? So take that opportunity to switch it up. Don't switch it up too often because the matching doesn't happen every week as it did way back a couple years back during the pandemic, but
Right.
you can have the opportunity to test it for sure.
Right. And you make a good point about not changing it up too often because it really depends on when like other companies are brought into these platforms. So you may have an influx of members, or it might be just a really quiet time and your profile has nothing to do with that. So it can be a crapshoot. But yeah, what else? What else would you say about like getting matched with
Well,
clients?
it's funny you say crapshoot because one of the things about this search result kind of thing to find you is we call it the dance of the algorithms. So
Mm,
somewhere in that black box of the search box that clients get, I have no idea why you would get pulled up or me or someone else. No clue. It may have to do with ratings from past sessions, but I've got on one platform a perfect rating, right, out of the maximum, but that doesn't help. Like I don't get like a whole flow of clients. So I guess it's not that. Maybe they're not caring about the number. I don't know. But yeah, but it's always good, at least rating wise, to maintain that and make sure that people you're satisfying people so they go do that. Don't go into asking people to rate you highly. But yeah, that also helps too. Let's see. I've also seen an occasional referral from other employees. Like sometimes somebody will drop in and say, "Oh, so and so who also works here said to look you up." Like, "Oh, well, that's kind of nice that somebody thought enough of me to do that." So that you may find that. I don't know what else. Anything else that
I
hasn't
don't
been covered?
know. You mentioned the ratings, and some platforms have ratings. They rate their coaches. Sometimes you see those, maybe sometimes you don't. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But my ratings are pretty high on one platform, and in January 2025, it's been slow. And last year at this time, the best year ever, best month ever, sorry, January 2024, it's the best. It was the best. And I don't know, maybe it's, still pandemic, economy, who knows? Who knows? But what's different about coaching for these companies compared to, say, like in a private practice? What would you say?
Yeah, first I would say is we have tons of flexibility in our private practice to say it's a 60-minute session or an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever you want, right? You can do whatever. But here it's pretty regimented, 30 minutes, and that's it.
Although I will say, for many companies, the first session is sometimes 45 minutes. So they give you a little bit extra time to have that quote unquote intake session, chemistry session, whatever you want to call it. So that's nice. Do you find that across the board, or is it some? I mean, for some it is 30 minutes regardless, but I know for two at least it's 45 minutes for that first session, which is nice.
So it's been variable when I see that pop up.
Mhm.
There was a time when it was being tested on one platform, and then for some reason they just dropped it. And I
Oh,
was like, Well, okay, great. Then on another platform, it seems very situational. Sometimes if someone comes in first, they'll pop in with a 45. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's great. We have a little more time. But then other people who've popped in for the first time are doing it only 30. Then I hear rumors of they could have picked 45, but they picked 30 instead. Okay. Then I've heard rumors about companies from a contract standpoint say, oh, we don't want the 45, we would just want 30s all the time. So there isn't even an option for a client to pick 45 for the first session if they wanted to. So yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
I wish there was the option to do that. That would,
same.
yeah, that would probably make things a lot better.
All right, that was a tangent. Sorry.
No, very
Continue.
important one.
What's different about these platforms compared to private practice? Back to our question.
Yeah, so in private practice, we can do a lot of different things, and with longer time sessions for each to do this kind of things. It seemed like before the pandemic hit, that coaching companies were only serving the upper echelons of management, but I think they were also charging more, right? Higher dollar, more experienced coaches, executive level coaches, corporate coaches, mostly for this kind of work. And they would draw people into a lot of programs, so very set, building leadership, right? And those kind of things to kind of standardize things. So it seemed like there was only that. Then when the pandemic hit, there was a huge opportunity in what they called mental health coaching back then. Maybe they still call it that now, but a lot of people needed coaching. And
Wellness coaching.
wellness coaching, health coaching, yeah, all the
Yeah,
stuff.
health coaching, wellness coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a big opportunity for growth for these coaching companies. And so then it got offered to the masses, and hence the 30-minute coaching session. And how can we do this in broad swaths through companies, and also probably at reduced cost too. So had to do a lot of that work, and it was great. There was a lot of kind of interest in it, and that might speak to kind of this drought we're seeing now in the coaching a little bit from these companies. Is seems like the pandemic's sort of over, and people are going back to their, I don't want to sound negative, but maybe some baseline level of discomfort or negativity in their lives, and they're going like, oh, well, this is the way it is normally, so I'm just going to grin and bear it, gut it through, and I'm not thinking about, oh, I need help for this.
Right, which leads me to the idea of coachability on these platforms. And I mean, even people on these platforms, they don't know what coaching is. Many of these members we get do not know what coaching is. So coaching is brand new for them. So good for them for taking a chance and checking it out. So there's still a lot of education that we need to do to let them know what coaching is, because maybe they didn't read the whole thing in their benefits package. They just clicked sign me up. But in terms of coachability, like what percentage would you say is of these members are actually coachable, and they're like, I'm not in a good mental place, I need some support, let's get some coaching, instead of just accepting that they're in this negative place and this is a baseline, so that's the way it is? What are your thoughts? How many people do you think are actually coachable?
That's a great question.
I see the wheels turning.
The wheels are turning. There's a couple variables here. So certain platforms.
I didn't give you time to do research.
You can give me time to think this through, man.
Yeah.
Okay, no. I'm thinking about the variability of infinite, unlimited sessions versus some platforms are very number-based. And that's a huge difference, because if they have unlimited, I've seen people do a lot better on the unlimited because we could just keep meeting as often as we can as often as they need to get whatever they want to go. When they feel there's a pressure to, oh man, I only have 6 sessions and they're only 30 minutes apiece, then they have to kind of mentally do that math on what can I get done in this time frame. And oftentimes they get into that place of, this is going to take a little bit longer than I think, and then they start showing up and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of, that part's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But let's see. So I'm going to ramble about coachability. You can stop me if you want to. But the first part is usually when we're in a private practice, we have the opportunity to talk to them and go, is this the right thing? Is therapy the right thing? Am I the right person for you?
Hmm.
And we can determine whether this person's really going to move or not. And we don't really get that here. They
Nope.
just hop in and you got to take what we get. It's like tough. You're not coachable, but too bad, Dave. You got to keep going with them.
Hmm.
Um, and this is probably, we're going to talk about this a little later. I mean, that's a great point of growth for a coach.
Yep. I was
Yeah.
just going to say, as you were talking, I'm like, I have learned so much about myself, about my coaching, about meeting a client where they are at, not where you want them to be. And if they're not coachable, you got to meet them there. And that can be hard. Um, Learned a lot for sure.
And then the other shade to this is coachability based on where we're at too,
Ooh.
right? So as we increase our coaching capabilities, our skills, and then this person who might have been not coachable for us 2, 3 years ago is
Yeah.
actually coachable now.
And we talked about this in our coachability episode a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. And sometimes I will have that first session with a member on these platforms and think like, yeah, no, this is not going to work. And then give it time, 5 or 6 sessions in, 7, 10, whatever. And then things start shifting. And then we're like, okay, now we're like coaching, now we're in it. And again, maybe that's my agenda and my perception. I don't know, but sometimes it takes time for a person to figure out what coaching is and to get it. Um,
Yeah, and that's where an advantage of a not, they don't have to pay for these sessions kind of platform is
mhm.
they can sit around and kind of warm themselves up to coaching and get into the flow. Whereas if they're paying out of pocket and they're like, if I'm not getting results the first time out because it's 100, 200, whatever dollars an hour, they may just not come back because of that. So
Right,
that is an advantage of where we are now.
right. All right, thank you for amusing me on that tangent. But what else is different about these platforms like compared to our private practice? Is there anything else?
Yeah, so on the money front,
Mm.
that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing, right? But generally, there's a lack of monetary incentive here. So if I'm paying you $300 an hour for a coaching session, yeah, I'm going to put my attention on it because I just put $300 out there. But if I'm not paying anything for it, where's the incentive coming from? Well, in here, right? And so
Yeah.
kind of
I,
leads
I
back to,
often, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, could lead back to the kind of the coachability aspect to it because
Yeah.
now really people have to put their own desire and effort behind it because it isn't their
Hmm.
wallet anymore. It's their own time, right, to come back and actually do something and really want it and all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a big difference there.
Right. And I sometimes think that clients just use me as a break from work. 30 minutes. Oh, yeah, I got a thing with saying, oh, that's cool. I don't have to work for 30 minutes. And I'll ask them, what would you like to focus on today? And they have no idea, even though I send reminders, like quarterly reminders. Remember, it's your job to come prepared to a session. And they don't. And it's like, okay, I know you're not paying for this. I get it. It's fine. I still get paid, so what are you gonna do? Anyway, what
Yep,
else?
definitely so. Just a couple more, I guess. Just sometimes they don't even know they have a coaching platform available to them.
Yes, I knew you were going to say this. And it is so interesting because companies will they'll blast out emails, saying, hey, we have this new benefits thing through Better Up or through Modern Health or through Spring Health. You can get coaching. Check it out. Get a coach. And you always know when they send that email because then you get a bunch of new clients. And you always know when they send out a second email because you get a bunch of more clients. And yeah, but then like months later, I'll get someone from that same company and they're like, yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea. And someone told me about it. So I looked into it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? They sent out two emails last January. Where were you? But people don't read things they're not aware. So that
Yeah, it
is,
even
that is
kind
something
of
to
goes back
consider.
to that comment about, right, the need is less now. We're out
Yeah,
of the pandemic. We're not fearing for our lives
right.
due to, pathogens and whatever. So we're back to our baseline level of whatever. And we're not thinking about it,
Oh God.
it kind of sucks for our profession that we are not thought of first, right? Everybody thinks, oh, I should go to a doctor, I should go to a psychiatrist, psychologist,
Should go to the gym.
therapist, go to the gym, read
Mm-hmm.
social media, look at the influencers, but they don't think, oh, I should go find a coach for this. Uh, yeah, that's a bigger problem, I think.
Yeah, we'll save that.
Yeah.
Save that for another episode. But yeah, what
Okay.
else?
Yeah. Well, what about session structure? What have you
Mm-hmm.
noticed about these sessions? Yeah, what have you seen?
Yeah, like compared to like a 45 to 60-minute session, I got one word for you, and it is depth. 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 That was three words. Well, one word said three times. I had a mastermind meeting with a few other coaches a few weeks ago, and we talked about this, and we all agreed that when you have a short session, you usually is keyword here, usually you sacrifice depth. And I say usually because it really depends on the client. We already talked about coachability. I have had some amazing sessions with amazing members who understand coaching. They come prepared. They want to get to work right at, top of the hour. Let's do it. And as a result, those members have had some pretty big shifts in 30 minutes or even 25 minutes. We'll end early because they're done. They're at that, we call the saturation point. So it depends, but I think in general, um, depth, you can't evoke as much as you want to. You can't get in there and ask all the questions. And along those same lines, you're keeping, I mean, maybe this is the same thing, but you're keeping the focus pretty narrow too. Maybe that's the same. I don't know. But one of the coaches from that mastermind uh, said it's like coaching is like, visiting a park. And in 45 to 60 minutes, you can explore the whole park. But in 30 minutes, you're just looking at the pond and you're just walking around the pond. You're focusing on the pond. That's it. Not the whole park, just the pond. Um, but what have you noticed that's different?
Yeah, I think pond or lake management is a pretty important key thing.
Gotcha.
Uh, yeah, it's if we don't get a handle on that in the beginning, and we probably talked about this before in other podcasts, where, what's that initial question you ask? If you ask the wrong question, the pond turns into a lake or the ocean.
Yes, like we talk about those expanding questions instead of like the funneling narrow
Yeah,
questions.
exactly.
And I've asked a couple of those. It's like, oh,
Oh, shouldn't have done that.
I'm like, dang, can I bring it back, bring it back? Can I rewind, rewind? And it eats up time. So you
That's
got to
right.
really be aware of those questions, what you're asking.
Yeah, and therein lies, since you only have 30 minutes, right, the pace is a little bit faster. So we may do a little bit of kind of broadening pond to lake-ish, right? Then we like, boom, we want to get to the drop of water kind of thing fast. So then we have to upgrade our own skills to be able to take, which one of those things you want to work on? That one, okay, let's dive in, blah, 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 and just kind of go for it. So the pace can be a little bit faster. It may be more relaxed if we had more time to explore a little bit and really get to what's bothering this person. But yeah, I think in general, all things are just a little bit faster. Um, Talking about pace, then, I would think there's a little bit less ability to slow down to a client who may need to kind of move a little bit slower. So, still got to honor that, and maybe we may run out of time. We're going to talk about that in probably a
Are
little
you
bit, but
are you pushing clients, David Chen?
pushing them along, let's say, to the end of the clock
Are
anyway.
you a pushy coach?
I am a push
Yeah,
my own agenda.
yeah.
The yeah, the Yeah, that one's a tough one, right? To really honor
Hmm.
somebody's own speed, and we
Yeah,
may have, have to deal with that somehow.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, if they want to explore more, right? You talked about depth, right? So that exploration can sometimes get cut short, and then what can you do? It's like, well, okay, clock's ticking. I'm watching the clock. There's a little clock going down. It's like, oh, 10 minutes left. Like, we need to kind of start closing. So sometimes you just kind of go, okay, this is the awareness we got. That's what we're going to work with. Let's try to get to this to the end. Um, Talkative clients can be really challenging in a 30-minute session. Um,
Yeah, and I've mentioned this before. I don't know which episode. I forget, but in that first session, if it's a talkative client, I mean, it'll be obvious. They'll be talking a lot, verbally processing. And I will ask them at the end of that session, is it okay if I interrupt you from time to time? And
Good
they
tip.
always say, yes, please do. I talk a lot. They know. Um, but yeah, interrupting is key to keep these sessions on track.
Yeah, and one more point about keeping things moving along and on track. I found that as coach, I have to do more intuitive suggestions. Whereas if I had
Mm,
more time, I might ask a question, but oftentimes I'll be sensing something and I go, I think I'm hearing that you're having a problem with blah blah blah, and they go, what do you think, right? And it's just a little bit faster to kind of place that suggestion in there and then get feedback to see if it was right or not. And that's another point for growth for us coaches is, well, don't lead them. That's the first
hmm.
big one. But also to beef up your own intuitive capabilities so that you are more on the mark with your sensing than not. Because oftentimes
Yes.
there's that light up in that client and he goes, oh my God, you see me, right? You get me
Hmm.
kind of thing. And that helps also generally. It's like, oh yeah, he kind of took everything I said and boom, put it in one sentence and I didn't have to think about it anymore. So that's another thing you might meet in clients a lot is just their own capabilities to look within are, lower, right? So they may
Hmm.
not be able to generate what's that thing you're feeling? I don't know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you may need to make those suggestions more often than not.
Hmm. See our episode on intuition. Yeah.
That's right.
There's also that idea of the first session, which can be, I don't know, you're not really, I mean, it's all coaching, but you're not really coaching that first session. You're getting to know each other, you're figuring out a plan for the next few sessions. Um, I usually spend the first two sessions going over assessments, long-term goals. Sometimes we spend a third session as well because 30 minutes is sometimes not enough to fully unpack everything and create that map, like a really good map for our time together. Um, yeah, so those first sessions are not as actionable sometimes. Would you say? Would you agree?
Yeah, and I have to admit, there's a bit of pressure, right? To deliver something. So
Yep.
sometimes this planning thing just feels like, oh man, I'm charging, they're getting charged or their credits, and are
But
they
by
going to be
pressure,
okay with that?
yeah, what do you mean by pressure? Like pressure from whom?
Oh, pressure from myself, actually,
Oh, okay.
within.
Because, okay, well, I'm glad you said that. Because I'm thinking pressure from like the companies who want to see results.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't feel that pressure, but I know like they're like, come on, we need results. They want to move the needle and get some action steps going. And yeah, action might not happen for 2 or 3 sessions, for me anyway. I mean, we're still creating awareness and getting them to think, but the needle's probably not moving a lot in those first few sessions, which I think companies might be like, well, coaching doesn't work because we're not seeing progress and action. I don't know.
Uh, I've heard of that happening. I haven't seen that yet, but I have heard that there is sometimes pressure from, yeah, the client company
Yeah.
to say that, well, if you don't get results, we're dropping you guys as a, benefit for our employees, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So
Yep.
yeah, there could be there for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel pressure within because let's say they only have 6 sessions, so it's like, I don't want to take up 5 sessions doing planning or whatever, even if they need
Right.
it.
Right. Good
I
point.
want to
Yeah.
I want to deliver something soon, so they feel good about it. They don't feel like they're wasting time and their valuable credits, but also they feel like they're getting somewhere too quickly. So
Right. And that's a good point. It really depends on how many sessions they have, and it's up to you as the coach to manage those sessions and that time well within the 30 minutes and within the coaching relationship.
yeah, less so with unlimited. I go, oh, come
Yeah.
on back the same week if you want to. Let's keep
Right.
talking. Let's get that planning done, in the first week, instead
Mm-hmm.
of we every 2 weeks.
Two
There's
weeks. Yeah.
whatever that automatic setting they have in their scheduler is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So we have 30 minutes. So what do
Mm-hmm.
we strive to do in that 30 minutes? What
That's
do
a good
you,
question.
yeah, what
That's
are
a
your
good
thoughts there?
question. I mean, 30 minutes, the time. Stay on target. Stay on target. Stay on target, stay on time. I think that's the major thing. I tend to stick to a roadmap a little bit more than I do with my private coaching clients. Depends on the client, of course. Depends. It depends. It depends. It always depends on the client. But I do make sure there's a focus and a desired outcome. And I always, 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 always leave time for proper closure of a session. So always, so takeaways, action step. What support do they need for that action step? Challenges, anticipate challenges, and then acknowledging the client one last time. And I know, oops, my alarm's going off. Sorry about that, everyone. Time to feed the cats. They're gonna have to wait. Uh, it's gotten, sorry, tangent. It's gotten to the point where the cats, it's Pavlov, and they hear my alarm and they know that it's crunchy time. So it's like, kill the alarm, keep the beasts asleep. All right,
And they're
I think
probably
that's fine.
drooling right now,
I
like,
think they are. They're in the other room drooling. But I lost my train of thought because of my alarm. What was I saying? Oh,
uh,
I know what I was
appreciating
going
the
to
client at the
say.
end. Sorry,
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
so leaving time for proper closure, and I know we weren't going to talk about student sessions and session reviews, but this is one thing I miss hearing in student sessions. It's properly closing a session. And those student sessions are usually 30 minutes, not always, but it's like 30-minute recording, that's what you need. And just leave 3, 4 minutes. It doesn't have to take that long. I mean, if you're figuring out an action step, maybe 5 to 7 minutes, so you can really get clear on what the person's going to do. But leave time for the support, the challenge questions, acknowledging the client one last time so they leave with a really good taste in their mouth, and a good feeling about themselves. Do not do that. That was a double negative. Um, yeah, what else? I mentioned this earlier, but I do a lot more interrupting in these sessions, and it depends on the client. If it's a talkative client, I will interrupt them a lot. I'll be like, okay, so you want to talk about this. So how are we doing? Okay, well, how does this relate to your focus? Um, but yeah, what about you? What do you strive to do in these shorter sessions?
Yeah, many things you've talked about, ICF competencies and session structure kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, Getting that agenda down. It's like, what do you guys want to talk about today? And then the outcome for me is a little bit fuzzy because sometimes I'll ask and I'll get the physical action result answer for that from them. So I've kind of shied away from asking that. So until we do some more exploration and get a little closer, um, I like to make sure they get some kind of action or homework afterwards. It can be a thought exercise. It could be a real big one too. So any of those kind of things. Most people like to have like, oh, what do I do next kind of thing. They want to know something to do. And then hopefully getting some level of agreement. I've had lots of instances where they go, oh yeah, I like that. I'll do that. And if they didn't do it. So really checking to see, are you going to do this? And are you okay with that? And if not, that's
Mhm.
okay. Let's do something else. But yeah, those would be the big things I think for me.
Yeah. And what might we skip in these sessions? Anything you'd just leave out?
I don't know if I want to leave it out, but sometimes it relates back to your depth
Mm.
comment from before. Sometimes you get to that point, you're just like, oh man, if I only had a couple more minutes, we'd get to exactly what's going on here, and then
Hmm.
everything, it would all be different. But you're watching the clock a little bit. It's like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. If we keep going, I think we're gonna go way over. So yeah, that one I wish I could do more of. And yeah, I'm
Hmm.
getting better. But sometimes if they start talking or they start drifting, then it's hard to yank them back and really get at what's going on.
Yank 'em back.
No, we're over here.
So violent. So
Yeah,
violent. My goodness. Yeah, evoking awareness really gets the short end of the coaching stick here. Sometimes I will admit I do not have a clear agenda. And you mentioned the outcome question. And I agree. I mean, even in 45, 60-minute sessions, you ask that too soon, and they're going to go for an action step, or they want the tips, tools, and tricks, which we'll talk about in a minute. I think we're going to get there, but yeah, there's a balance between evoking enough, asking what they want by the end of the session. But sometimes even that is unclear in these short sessions, and especially with a talkative client. And we just explore. And you know what? They always get something out of it. It's interesting how that works. Like if you're just holding space for them, guiding them gently, not yanking or pushing, but just guiding them gently.
I like yanking. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
jeez.
Just kidding.
They will always get something out of a session, I found. That's my experience. Um, but yeah, so what happens if you can't get through everything in 30 minutes?
Well, I don't know about you, but I start to sweat and I get armpit stains no, I'm just kidding. It
Ew.
is a very nervous point, and we've been doing it for a while, so maybe we don't get so nervous anymore. But I remember in the beginning, you watch that clock coming down, and also, by the way, you may have a client right after
I
that,
was
another
gonna
one.
ask
Yeah.
you, do you still do back-to-back sessions?
Yeah, I just there is
Oh
some
man.
platforms have a capability of adding 15 minutes or whatever it is between sessions and stuff,
Yes.
so people can't schedule right
Yes.
after. But yeah, I'm a cowboy, man. I just do them back to back.
Wow. I always opt for the buffer time, the
Hmm.
10 or 15-minute buffer time. And I would say as a result, if the client doesn't have something to get to, we go 35 minutes. We'll go a little bit over. So,
Hmm.
I hit my sweet spot. I don't get paid for that 5 minutes. But I like that buffer. Yeah, I'm just how do you do back-to-back sessions? I'm getting kind of tense thinking about it. I'm like, ah, yeah.
Well, you
Hmm.
got to go life on the edge sometime, you know?
I
Go to the
guess.
Wild West and be a cowgirl. Come on, let's go.
All right. All right, California boy. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if you feel that rush, but you know, generally just stay calm. 5, 10 minutes left, just tie it up, finish off. I've just gracefully said, hey, you know what? This exploration is great. Can we put a pause here and continue next time? Uh, so that's happened a lot. Uh, the other thing that I've noticed is over this last couple of years, I've built up kind of a whole library, a bag of tricks of actions. So it could be as something like, hey, do you journal? It's like, hey, how about writing your thoughts about this a little bit more? It sounds like you've got more. So keep generating that awareness and seeing what you come out, you know, what comes out of that. A notice a name exercise, for example. So,
I
and
like
I've got,
that.
yeah,
Continue this on your own time.
yeah,
Stealing.
exactly.
That's great.
I got
Well,
a
that
whole bag of
also,
tricks.
that's great. Maybe I need a session with you to learn some of these things, but that's great because it helps with yeah, just this self-coaching aspect and building their own awareness without a coach, which is kind of what it's all about. We don't want these people to be our clients forever, but that's great.
So
Love
yeah,
it.
on that point, I've discovered that there are actually ways for us to suggest something that is great for them to do. And they feel good. It's like, oh yeah, notice the name. That sounds great. You know, it just flows right out of running out of time from the
Mm,
30-minute session. So, and there's a bunch of things like that. They may get to a certain level of awareness with something, and you go like, oh, that'd be perfect for a book recommendation, or this and that, or you know, go for a walk and see. It's just a lot of these things that start popping up within me, and I go, oh, try that. You know, yeah, it's okay. I'm running out of time, but I'm gonna drop that on you and see if you actually like. And a lot of people do like it, so that's good. Um, so yeah, building up that thing, that set of things that they can do as you're running out of time with whatever they've ended up, that place they've ended up with. Um, that's something you can start building up with. And then the other one is most platforms don't like this because they say, some of them say it's illegal, but you can actually just say, hey, let's book 2 sessions back to back and let's get
mm-mm.
that hour that we really needed for
Don't do
this
it.
stuff. um, and well, one platform I have doesn't care, but they don't have unlimited sessions. The
Mm.
other one that I'm on has unlimited. Some most I think I've heard rumors that they do have some limited sessions, but most of the ones I'm working on have unlimited. But they discourage that. But
Yeah.
I've had people do it, and I haven't got my hand slapped yet. So,
Yeah, I'm afraid to get
and
my
I'm not
hand
going to mention
slapped.
which platform I'm on in case this gets
Well,
out there.
I had a client who was like, well, my previous coach, we did back-to-back sessions. I'm like, well, that's against the rules. I mean, I'm not that I'm a total rule follower, but you know, no. And she was very upset. But we made it work. And yeah, it's discouraged, I think, on most
But it's
platforms.
funny though, the technology is there to just either prevent it from happening even at the outset or to slap our hands later because you can just go back into the data and say like, oh, Dave had a lot of, you know,
Mm,
back-to-back sessions. We should kick him off the platform or something.
hmm.
So it's like, why do you make that rule if you have the technology to enforce it and just kick people off if they're, anyway, whatever. Back to the podcast.
Back to our regularly scheduled program.
That's right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I will say that
what else? Yeah, for
yeah,
you.
I make a note of where we stopped. Often something comes up right before we close. And my favorite phrase is, well, I'm conscious of the time, conscious of the time. So I'm conscious of the time. And on some of these platforms, it actually like shows you how many, like
Yeah, there's an
it'll
alert.
flash up like 5 minutes left or like 2 minutes left. it'll change colors. It'll be like, and the client sees that too. So sometimes they're like, well, I know we're almost out of time. I'm like, yes, we are. But I'll make a note of, something that came up. And you know what? More often than not, next session they'll have already moved on. I'll be like, okay, last time we ended here. Do you want to continue focusing on this, or is there something else? And it's usually something else. Um, but I will, and I said this before, and I'll say it a couple more times. Always make time to close. Like, don't just be like, well, we're out of time. Bye. Action steps, takeaways, support challenges, acknowledging the client. Just leave a couple minutes for those things. But so if someone's new to the 30-minute session, which I don't know, I think most coaching students will have to do some sort of 30-minute session. But if you're new to these platforms and these short sessions, like what advice would you give them?
Well, this is what I've told some people. I go, okay, master level coaches have said to me 35 to 40 minutes is the sweet spot.
Hmm.
So guess what? This platform's cutting you short, cutting you off at 30 minutes. So guess what? You're in master level school. No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna really scare them with that. Yeah. But yeah, it really just stay calm, right? And go with the flow, move things along. It's a great growth opportunity for you as coach. So live it, relax, just let it go. Improve your technique to help people, your intuition, some of the stuff we've talked about here today. Try to get to the root cause faster. And whatever awareness you got, just run with it. Don't feel bad if it's kind of transactional, as some people might put it. Just run with it and look to do better next time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that
What do you think?
mastermind, yeah,
Hmm.
in that mastermind I mentioned earlier when we were talking about these short sessions, um, one of the coaches will ask, what have you already tried to solve this issue? Which I think is brilliant because it really cuts to the chase. Like, okay, all that didn't work. Like, now what? Um, and I would say for coaches new to these short sessions to really follow, I didn't do this in any session, but follow their lead. Every client will be different. Do they want to explore an emotion? Great. Do they want to dive deep into an action step and clear on the goal? Maybe the whole session is just talking about the action step. Great. Do they want to learn a new technique for something? Great. I mean, follow their lead. Um, yes, there are roadmaps. Yes, hold them gently and loosely. Um, and don't push or yank your clients. Jeez.
Okay, I'll stop.
And you mentioned already, like, just relax, as long as you wrap up the session, close the session thoughtfully, and your client has some shift, even just a little shift. And that shift might not happen until they sleep on it, until they've had a week to think about it, to process it. And the subconscious mind does a lot of work when we're not, consciously thinking about something. But if they leave with some shift, some action step, you have done your job. So just relax,
Can I add one more?
please.
So we didn't quite get into this, but it's popping up for me now, especially for new coaches. So I don't know about you, and this kind of
Mm,
goes along the comment we made earlier about people not really understanding what coaching is. So I get a lot of people coming in thinking it's more mentoring or teaching even, or even informational. So you may get a client that comes in going, "Oh, tell me what it's like to be an executive at a company or whatever, based on whatever your background could be, if you have something like that, or tell me what kind of things I should eat, kind of thing, because I'm trying to lose weight, or if it's a health thing." So you can make the call. Oh, that's not me, and I don't do that kind of stuff. If you like, there's nothing necessarily wrong with providing the information in this kind of platform because they're paying for it. Oh, they're not paying for it actually, and no one's tracking you unless you have what seems to be the popular AI recording tool. I don't know if they're going to track everybody to see if you're coaching or not, but whatever happens in these sessions is up to you. And to not get flustered if someone starts asking you for information or question, if that's how they want to spend that 30 minutes with you, make the call, right? Either you want to be, no, I'm going to be coach Nazi and only coach. That's fine, do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they want to learn about you or your experiences or the work or training or food or whatever it is, disease, I don't know what else they want. It's up to you. Just run with it. Stay relaxed. Go do it. You may find they actually come back because you did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway,
That's
dealing with those
yeah.
who don't understand what coaching is.
That's a great point. And I will say I do a lot more teaching and offering information on these platforms. And I'm thinking of a couple members in particular. They just want to learn new techniques. It's those tips, tools, tricks. And so we'll talk through some things. And they're excited. They're like, "Oh, that's really cool." Communication is a big topic in my sessions. I love talking about communication, and so I've amassed, a whole library of tools and techniques to share. So, and I know you do a lot in the energetic realm, Reiki, shamanism, all of that. Actually, we didn't talk about this, but do those things ever come up in your sessions? Like, which is kind of your niche, like, but in your sessions on these platforms, do the idea of like Reiki, shamanic Reiki, or any of that come up for you?
Yeah, it does actually, because it's in
Mm,
my profile.
there you
And
go.
yeah, I've had many clients who were energetically inclined and were open to talking about things in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And often breakthroughs will happen when we shift out of the traditional left brain
Yes.
ways
Yes.
of coaching and talk therapy. A lot of coaching techniques come from therapy, right? So once we get out of that, instead of sticking to nothing wrong with cognitive behavioral therapy and all that kind of thing, for a lot of people it works. But then you meet people that it doesn't work for. Like, well, what do you do? I
Right.
can't keep convincing you that the world is really that because even though you agree that it is that, you still don't believe it inside. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what do we do then? So, yeah, a lot of times we shift to other types of things,
Yeah.
other ways. I like to talk about it in terms of models, right? If we keep the cognitive behavioral therapy model, left brain, right, argue with yourself, it's really this, not that, that works for some. But if that doesn't work, let's change the model. Let's change it to
Mm-hmm.
a shamanic Reiki model or an energy model or something else, right? So chakras, I don't know, whatever works with the client, right? That may all of a sudden, boom, give them a solution where they could not find one before. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very helpful.
Yeah. And cognitive behavioral therapy, it speaks to the mind. And we are more than just a mind. Like, what about the heart? What about the body? What about the energetic being? And so, the more a coach can learn about those different models, as you say, the better, because then you'll better be able to meet any client where they're at.
Yeah, you'll have an expanded toolkit
Yep.
to be able to deploy with people. Yeah.
Deploy. Violent.
Yank people into deployment.
Push, yank, deploy. My goodness. Very militaristic here.
That's right. Well, let's see. I think we're coming to the end here.
I think
Any
so.
final thoughts?
I would just say to repeat what we've said already, be mindful of the time in these short sessions and allow enough time for properly closing a session. Yeah, just leave them in a good state of mind. That's
Well
it.
said. Yeah, great stuff. So as always, we'll leave some resources in the show notes, as always. And where can people find you, Sandy?
swansoncoaching.com. Where can people find you, Dave?
CoachDshen.com.
Yay. Another one in the books.
Whew. It's been a while, but I'm glad we were able to do one.
Successful. Maybe the next one will be less violent.
But I love to yank, though.
All right, yank the button on this record thing.
Yes, I'm
Zoom.
yanking the stop button right now.
Push it. Deploy it.